Tonight on West Dakota Fox News at 9, a powerful and silent protest on Capitol Hill. Plus, lost in translation, the new steps Morton and Burleigh County Sheriff's Departments are taking towards understanding. But first, the mighty are falling. Today, another shocking shakeup in the West Wing.
This is West Dakota Fox News at 9 with Molly Martinez and meteorologist Henry Blakes. Your first news of the night starts right now on West Dakota Fox News at 9.
Good evening, I'm Molly Martinez. Secretary of State Rex Tillerson is out, fired this morning via tweet. Those close to Tillerson say he learned about the ousting with the rest of us. Reporter Doug McElway shows us what yet another turnover means for the Trump administration.
Rex and I have been talking about this for a long time. We got along actually quite well, but we disagreed on things.
President Trump rocking the nation's capital with a single tweet. The president writing, quote, "Mike Pompeo, director of the CIA, will become our new Secretary of State. He will do a fantastic job. Thank you to Rex Tillerson for his service." Tillerson's departure, a long-time rumor here. He traveled overseas to Africa this week, but returned a day early, arriving back in Washington this morning. Tillerson was said to have cut the trip short due to the demands of work and in-person meetings in Washington.
The Iran deal, I think it's terrible. I guess he felt it was okay. I wanted to either break it or do something, and he felt a little bit differently. So we were not really thinking the same.
Mike Pompeo is President Trump's choice to replace Tillerson, a former Kansas congressman. He graduated first in his class at West Point. He will be the first CIA director to become Secretary of State.
Nobody's closer to President Trump than Mike Pompeo, so in that regard, I think he'll be very effective.
A State Department official tells Fox that Tillerson is unaware of the reason the president is replacing him. Tillerson, according to the official, had every intention of staying on the job.
Meantime, Trump's pick to replace Pompeo is Gina Haspel. She'll be the first woman to hold the office and is highly respected within the CIA. However, according to the New York Times, while running a CIA prison in Thailand, Haspel oversaw the torture of 2 terrorism suspects, then ordered the destruction of video evidence documenting their interrogations. Also in Washington, former Trump campaign manager Paul Manafort could face life in prison. Today, a federal judge declared that, quote, the defendant faces the very real possibility of spending the rest of his life in prison, given the nature of the charges and the evidence against him. Manafort is facing 18 counts of tax evasion and bank fraud. Manafort served as the chairman of President Trump's campaign during the summer of 2016. Back at home, the 2018 political season kicks off this week in Grand Forks with the state Democratic Convention. And North Dakota is a pivotal player in this year's high-stakes national election cycle. Andrew Horn, Bo Evans, and I will be bringing you live coverage from Grand Forks starting Thursday. But now to some live weather coverage with meteorologist Henry Blakes. The man accused of attacking a priest in Anamoose in January is asking for reduced bail. Chad Lagar faces attempted murder charges in the attack on Father Robert Wapinski. Judge Michael Hurley set Lagar's bond at $250,000 and then recused himself. So the defense asked the judge, Donovan Fauti, to reconsider their request.
At this time, he would be requesting that the court would enter or amend the bond to $100,000 cash or corporate surety. Judge
Fauti lowered the bail to $200,000. U.S. Marshals in North Dakota arrested an Arkansas man accused of raping a 13-year-old boy 2 years ago. 26-year-old Corey Oxford is charged with 2 counts of rape and transporting a child for sex. Prosecutors say an accomplice has already been sent to prison. Michael Rowe received an 80-year sentence on similar charges, and Weston Bailey was given 4 years of probation for paying a minor to have sex. The Bismarck man is under arrest for threatening his former neighbors and crashing a car. Police arrested 24-year-old Sean Zoa by Reno Avenue last night. Witnesses told police Zoa was yelling and cursing outside of his apartment on Stuttgart Drive and threatened to shoot one of his neighbors before peeling out. Zoa was arrested for terrorizing, false information to an officer, and criminal mischief. And we're learning the identity of a driver killed on Saturday. Highway Patrol says 40-year-old Elizabeth Pullman of Newtown died when her car spun out of control and into the path of an oncoming pickup truck on Highway 23. Well, there's a lot of transit talk an hour ago at the Bismarck City Commission meeting. Megan Hoffman was there and tells us why both riders and commissioners are concerned.
Changes were made to the Bismarck transit and paratransit routes and policies in the last several years. That includes paratransit riders needing to be waiting for their bus 15 minutes prior to pickup time, while sometimes the bus will be running 15 to 20 minutes late.
I don't want people missing their doctor's appointments just because they have to miss transit.
Trevor Vanette has used the paratransit system to get around for the last 20 years, but says over the last couple years he sent in several complaints because the time the buses show up can vary so much and have limited the hours they run.
On Sundays especially, they're only open until 7:30 a.m. to 2:30 p.m. How is that right for people with disabilities?
Roy Rickert with Bismarck Transit says asking riders to be outside 15 minutes early is a standard in the industry. Rickert told city commissioners he reviews complaints once a month, but doesn't always share them with the board of directors, something many commissioners said isn't enough to address concerns.
I'm just concerned that we might not be looking at this in more of a, we have a responsibility for taking care of our neighbors and our friends as people.
For West Dakota Fox News at 9, I'm Megan Hoffman.
Law enforcement in our state find themselves hitting a language barrier. As more immigrants make their way to North Dakota, the need for Spanish-speaking officers is at an all-time high. Reporter Daniela Hurtado found out what they're doing to bridge the language gap.
¿Tiene licencia y registración y seguro?
Sí, señor, denme un segundo. A routine stop could be a little more difficult when there's a language barrier.
To be able to communicate with them is probably one of the most essential things.
Listening to Hispanic music is one way Pritchett stays in tune with his Spanish. His coworker, Josh Selly, says he has other methods to learn the language.
I use like Duolingo, memorize on my phone when I have time. I listen to podcasts.
¿Dónde estás? Across the river at the detention center, there's one employee who is bilingual, and she says she's often asked for help.
Even if there's a deputy in the road that has questions and they can't communicate, they call me. So it's very, very important to know the language.
Aguirre encourages more officers to learn the language to help communicate with the influx of immigrants into our community. For West Dakota Fox News at 9, I'm Daniela Hurtado.
The Bismarck School Board is looking for ways to improve school safety. They met last night to discuss some new measures. That includes training for restraint and seclusion. And resource officers at Bismarck Public Schools will receive national training on reacting to active threats. A new $5 million federal grant means a new Cannonball Elementary School. Maddie Gelseth went to Cannonball to find out what changes are in store.
Everyone that I spoke to told me this new elementary school is much needed because the current school isn't the greatest. Former elementary school teacher Todd Hansen says students have to wear jackets in some classrooms because the building isn't well insulated.
Sometimes I have to wear my coat because it gets cold inside.
But it's not just the cold rooms students are thrilled to see change.
It's exciting because we won't have bugs in this school.
The Cannonball Elementary School's average enrollment is 93 students, and the superintendent of the district is expecting that number to increase because of the new school.
To allow our children to better learn in an environment that promotes successful learning, we needed a new school, and this grant was really the only avenue that we had.
Fryer says the plan is to keep the current school functioning while construction for the new one takes place. Then the old school will be demolished. The federal funding will be dispersed over 3 years to replace the elementary school.
In state health news, starting April 1st, all child care employees will need training for CPR and sudden infant death syndrome. The changes were based on a 2014 federal grant to improve child care practices. North Dakota's previously only required one person to need training.
There wouldn't be any wait time. If something happened, an infant was choking on something, or a preschooler needed first aid, we don't have to wait to call that one person that's in the center. All hands are trained and able to take care of it immediately.
From 1990 to 2015, the national SIDS rate has dropped from 154 deaths to 39 deaths per 100,000 births. A bus full of high school students goes careening down a ravine, killing the driver. The accident happened early this morning in Alabama. The bus was carrying students back from a band trip to Disney World. Dozens of those students are now recovering from serious injuries. The NTSB is launching an investigation. Some wild video of a tornado in southern Italy. Cameras were rolling as the twister touched down last night in Castera. Several people were injured, but no fatalities are reported. Also in Italy, a city known for flooding is living up to its reputation. This is the scene in Venice today after several days of heavy rain. The city was built on more than 100 small islands and is known for its series of canals and bridges which serve as roads. In London, police discovered the body of a Russian businessman with ties to the Kremlin. Investigators say Nikolai Glushkov was in his late 60s. They say Glushkov was a friend of a prominent critic of the Kremlin who was found dead in London in 2013. Back stateside, 7,000 pairs of shoes are laid out in front of the Capitol building in Washington. They represent the estimated number of children who have died as a result of gun violence since Sandy Hook. Activists made the installment to draw attention to the call for gun reform. New numbers tonight from the front lines of the opioid crisis. According to a new study by the University of Washington, drug overdose deaths increased more than 200% between 1980 and 2000, and more than 100% between 2000 and 2014. Arnold Schwarzenegger is heading to court. The actor plans to sue oil companies for, quote, killing people all over the world. Schwarzenegger says the industry knows fossil fuels would result in global warming and they put people's lives at risk. According to a new report, lead exposure may be responsible for nearly 10 times more deaths in the United States than previously thought. A study published in The Lancet Public Health claims 412,000 deaths can be attributed to lead contamination annually. And guinea pigs could be to blame for a multi-state salmonella outbreak. 9 patients in 8 different states are affected. The CDC recommends people with pet rodents wash hands, keep food bowls out of the kitchen, and avoid holding animals close to your face. It's tax season, and turns out Americans could be entitled to more than $1 billion in unclaimed tax refunds. The IRS estimates that 1 million taxpayers could potentially have claim to some of that money. They say students and part-time workers are among those who are likely to have overlooked a filing return. Speaking of earnings, the pay gap between mothers with children and without children continues to widen. The new research by the University of Michigan tracked 18,000 individuals from 5,000 different families since the late 1960s and found the pay gap for a mother with 2 kids versus a woman with no kids was 13%. An Ohio couple is suing a fertility clinic over a damaged embryo following a storage failure. The couple's lawyers are reportedly seeking a class action status since as many as 2,000 frozen eggs and embryos were lost in the failure. They were told over the weekend that their embryos are no longer viable. Another snowstorm is slamming parts of Massachusetts. It's the 3rd such storm in just 2 weeks. And this is what it looked like in the town of Lawrence. Thick, wet snow blanketed the streets, sidewalks, and trees. Drivers are being asked to stay off the roads. Henry, around these parts, our roads seem to be clearing up quite nicely.
Yeah, due to the snow melt, things are looking better across the region. The roads are clearing.
Investigators in Austin, Texas say a string of deadly package explosions are connected. Now it's a race to find who's sending them before they strike again. Fox News correspondent Lauren Blanchard has more from Austin. A debate is sparking over whether or not spanking children should be legal. UNICEF says almost 300 million children around the world receive physical discipline from caregivers, but countries are starting to rethink the practice. 60 countries have banned using physical punishment on children, including Germany, Ireland, and Brazil. And this isn't very sportsmanlike. A blatant foul at a Kansas high school basketball game caught on camera. You can see the player on the ground shoving the player going up for a dunk. He was given a technical foul, but was not removed from the game. Over now to another slam dunk. Meteorologist Henry Blakes.
Hey, we're talking about a chance of fog once again tonight, but otherwise it's going to be mostly clear if you don't get that fog developing. Lows in the teens and a few single digits across the northwest. Then we're back above freezing tomorrow. A few low 30s across the north central region. Elsewhere, we're near 40 degrees with the wind becoming easterly. Weak little disturbance across the far west for Thursday. Light snow possible, not expected accumulation, but the weather looks nice way after that, especially over the weekend.
The weather looks wonderful. We'll see you tomorrow.